Welcome to the Improve and Have Fun podcast. My name is Paul V. Perez, and on this podcast, I work on improving myself while having fun along the way with the hopes of encouraging you to do the same. And I do so by documenting my life and interests. Reading and enjoying Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now inspired me to Google best spiritual books. The Celestine Prophecy was one of those books. Search you can do yourself and you can see it come right on up. Siddhartha was my last biggest takeaway entry, was one of these books as well. The Celestine Prophecy plays out like a movie when listening to the audiobook version. Some of the dialogue intrigued me and moved me to highlight that particular text in the Kindle version of the book. The question which always fascinates me is, why do we do what we do? And that's brought up multiple times in this novel. I figure if I can find out why I do what I do, I can be a better, more understanding and forgiving version of myself. And let me read you a description of what the Celestine Prophecy is about. This is the Wikipedia description. The Celestine Prophecy is an adventure. It's a 1993 novel by James Redfield that discusses various psychological and spiritual ideas rooted in multiple ancient Eastern traditions and New Age spirituality. The main character undertakes a journey to find and understand a series of 9 spiritual insights in an ancient manuscript in Peru. The book is a first-person narrative of the narrator's spiritual awakening as he goes through a transitional period of his life. Now, here are some of my biggest takeaways from this book. Do any of these passages resonate with you? Please let me know. This first one is in between pages 5 and 6. And when it comes to relationships, we're so demanding that we're making them near impossible. What exactly are we doing to our romantic relationships, I asked. I talked with the priest a long time about this, she replied. He said that when both partners in a relationship are overly demanding, when each expects the other to live in his or her world, to always be there or to join in his or her chosen activities, an ego battle inevitably develops. What she said struck home. My last 2 relationships had indeed degenerated into power struggles. In both situations, we had found ourselves in a conflict of agendas. The pace had been too fast. We had too little time to coordinate our different ideas about what to do, where to go, what interests to pursue. In the end, the issue of who would lead, who would determine the direction for the day had become an irresolvable difficulty. Because of this control battle, Charlene continued, the manuscript says we will find it very difficult to stay with the same person for any length of time. That doesn't seem to be very spiritual, I said. That's exactly what I told the priest, she replied. He said to remember that while most of society's recent ills can be traced to this relentlessness and searching, this problem is temporary and will come to an end. We're finally becoming conscious of what we are actually looking for, of what this other, more fulfilling experience really is. When we grasp it fully, we'll have attained the first insight. He said, the first insight occurs when we become conscious of the coincidences in our lives. It just makes me think of all the divorces happening today and relationships not lasting very long. Or maybe I'm just focusing on the negative there, but let's move on to the next passage here, and that's on page 70. For this reason, he added, we humans always seem to take a manipulative posture, no matter what the particulars of the situation or the subject matter. We prepare ourselves to say whatever we must in order to prevail in the conversation. Each of us seeks to find some way to control and thus to remain on top in the encounter. If we are successful, if our viewpoint prevails, then rather than feel weak, we receive a psychological boost. In other words, we humans seek to outwit and control each other, not just because of some tangible goal in the outside world that we're trying to achieve, but because of a lift we get psychologically. This is the reason we see so many irrational conflicts in the world, both at the individual level and at the level of nations. I like that one. It's kind of letting our ego get the best of us. The next passage is on page 72. Did you see that girl? He asked, looking at me. She is a classic example of psychological violence. This is what the human need to control others leads to when taken to the extreme. The old man and woman are dominating the girl totally. Did you see how nervous and stooped she was? Yes, I said, but it appears she's about fed up. Exactly. Her parents have never let up, and from her point of view, she has no choice but to lash out violently. It is the only way she can gain some control for herself. Unfortunately, when she grows up because of this early trauma, she will think she has to seize control and dominate others with the same intensity. This characteristic will be deeply ingrained and will make her just as dominating as her parents are now, especially when she is around people who are vulnerable, such as children. In fact, this same trauma, no doubt, happened to her parents before her. They have to dominate now because of the way their parents dominated them. That's the means through which psychological violence is passed down from one generation to another. And I find that super telling, especially how we repeat a lot of the patterns, that we see our parents do, whether it be personally or sometimes even professionally. Like, we just can't see sometimes beyond what our parents did, or just like, if they did it, then I guess it's okay to do it, kind of thing. Not always, but maybe not so much in terms of life goals, but maybe in terms of more behavior, right? Those are three of many of my biggest takeaways that I've highlighted in this book, takeaways that have resonated with me. And but if you are interested in reading or listening to the Celestine Prophecy, do so by clicking my affiliate link, which will be in the show notes for this episode. And purchasing the book through this link will support myself and the author. And thank you so much for listening.